Alright guys, sorry that the video wasn't up till now, but the screenshot program that I usually use wasn't working until now. I found another one. So this is for the freshman volleyball team 2010. We're going to do a little bit about positions and where people should be. So this is Coach Pinta. So let's just look at what we got here. So the yellow circle will represent the front row outside hitter. The red is front row middle hitter, front row right side hitter, or a setter. On occasion, we'll leave the setter in if they're aggressive enough in the front row. Back row outside hitter, back row setter, and back row middle hitter. Often they'll get liberoed or defensive specialist. We'll put a defensive specialist in for them. That's what the L stands for. All right, so we start the game. We all get into a huddle. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. All right, so we all go out into rotation number one. So we go out into rotation number one, and here we are. We always start with the setter in the back right, or at least most of the time. And so then opposite them would be the other setter or the right side that went in for them. Outside back left and outside front right, and then the middle start in the middle. This one would also probably get liberoed out. All right, so let's do serve receive. The first serve receive is this one needs to get out of the way. So if this one needs to get out of the way, then we need to go into serve receive one. So that setter is going to get stacked up. Oh, before I forget, I'm going to try to attach a worksheet to this. You might want to print that off before we get any further, and then you'll be able to write all this in there. So here's rotation one. So you'll notice how that setter stacks up. Everybody else wraps around, and we make this nice U shape here. This is what we're looking for in our serve receive. So again, if we go back to rotation one and go into serve receive, it should look like that. Okay, so if we go into rotation 2, now in each of these, the rotations look a little funny in the animation. So if I go into rotation 2, technically this guy should have gone into the back row and become this back row outside, but because the names are what matters, it looks weird. Alright, so again, if we're going into serve receive, this is the guy that we got to hide, because we want him to get the second ball, so the orange guy. So we're going to stack him up. And the most important thing, and we'll get burned by refs all the time, is that this guy needs to be in between the green and purple guy if we continued, their lines going up. So, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine, that's bad. Fine, 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 bad. Now, usually they'll just line up like this, but if for some reason, the server's cutting across the court a ton or going down the line, we might shift everybody over, and this guy's got to be smart enough to move over the same. Alright, so if we go back into rotation 2, it looks like this. Alright, so let's go back into rotational. Let's get into rotation 3. So again, that middle would go back row and the middle would go front row. But this is how we look in rotation 3. So if we go into rotation 3's serve receive, this was the weird one that we talked about in practice. We get this guy out of the way, and these two guys become two of our serve receivers. Now what we want is this outside to be able to go and hit on the outside right away. So we want to pull him back, and he's going to be in our serve receive. So he has to stay on the right side of this middle, and he has to stay in front of this outside. So he can go all the way up to here. And this setter, we want to get as far over to zone 7 as we can get him. So he can go, he just has to be behind this middle and to the left of the purple outside. So what happens is, if we're in this rotation, we go into the serve receive, it kind of looks like those two guys flip positions, because they kind of do. Now this guy just needs to make sure that he's behind this guy and to the left of the purple outside in serve receive. Alright, so those are our 3 serve receives. So once we serve receive and the ball goes back over, then in general what's going to happen is we're going to go into what's called base. So everybody moves around the court, and we get the setters and right sides on the right, we get the outsides on the left, and the middles or liberos go in the middle of the court. So let's say that we're going to go over our offense first. Let's say that, the ball comes over and we pass. We go into what we could call pre-hit. So what happens is the setter shifts up, wants to get into zone 7. The 3 hitters get into their position for pre-hit, and the 2 guys in the back split the difference. So let's say we're going to hit an outside. So the setter gets the ball, he sets it to the outside. We want to support that outside hit. Pretty much what happens is it kind of looks like everybody just runs at that guy. Because if he pounds this ball off the block, we want to have as many guys around as possible. If that ball goes off high and goes to the back, then at least, you know, we've got time to get these guys under it. All right, so let's go back into pre-hit. And what if we set the middle? Well, if we set the middle, again, pretty much everybody runs at it. Now, on the A team, and most of the time on the B team, once we get going, I would assume that we're going to be running 51s or quicks in the middle, which makes this guy's job near impossible in what you're going to see here. So everybody pretty much runs at the middle, tries to get behind him as much as possible. But we realize that it's near impossible to go from here to here in the time that it takes for this middle to hit a quick. But, you know, he should be able to take one big good step, so in case the ball comes off soft at least, we can get him behind it. So if we're in pre-hit and we go into the middle hit support, everybody just kind of gets up, gets as behind him as we can. So if we go into pre-hit again, and we go to supporting a right side, everybody kind of shuffles in behind him. The most important guy, I would say in this case, is the libero. So the libero needs to get behind this guy because the most common thing that'll happen after a block is it'll go directly behind the guy. So again, if we go into pre-hit, everybody looks like this, and we go to defend a right side, and it looks over here. Okay, so that's all the three positions for supporting an outside. Supporting a hit. Supporting an outside looks like this, supporting a middle looks like this, and supporting a right side looks like that. Now, let's say that we're defending an outside. Well, in defending an outside, what we would want to do is we would want to be in our base. This is what we look like when they have the ball. This is our base. If they're going to set their outside, which is opposite of our outside, then we want to defend an outside. So the middle is always going to block. We got the two guys that are closest moving in on tip defense, and the two guys in the back kind of splitting the difference. So this is what that would look like. Now this libero here, at least I know on A, is going to be covering that line pretty hard. Nobody beats us down the line. Okay, there will be times, I mean, if they start burning us cross a bunch, we might scoot this guy over, but he starts on that line. So we look at that, we go from base into defending an outside, and it should look something like that. So if we go back into base, and let's say that they set a middle. So if we set a middle, if we're going to defend against a middle, everybody shifts around so that we get this shape. Now, the most important player, and the one that usually kind of screws this up, is the outside back row guy. If he's lazy and he hangs back here, this tip here is really easy. I guess the other one is, if we look at base, the other one that tends to fight this is the back row setter, because he will want to get back up here after we pass the ball. So his defense is back there. And when we go into pre-hit, he really has to move a lot. But it is important that he gets back into that position. So if we look at defending a middle and then into pre-hit, that setter really has to move a lot in the time that the ball's in the air also. All right, so the last one is if we go into our base and they set a right side. So that means that they set behind the setter, it's over there. Then we're defending that right side. The middle goes over to block. The two closest guys get our tip defense. The libero gets down the line, and the leftover guy covers pretty much this whole area of the court. And the only thing that should be coming at him is either a ball that rolls over the block, or if you notice, he's lined up just outside of the block. So if the ball comes outside of the block, that should hit him. For example, if the ball is a little more inside, he might want to swing out so that ball that comes outside the block comes to him better. But in general, this is the starting spot. Now, let's say that we're in base and they have a bad pass and it comes over, or their bad pass, we yell free. So free, the setter moves up, the outside, like everybody shifts off the net, and these guys split the difference. The main difference is pre-hit and free ball. Free ball, the outside and the right side are on the court. So that's the main difference. Pre-hit and free ball, the main difference is that they are on the court. All right, so I hope you guys took notes. Keep that piece of paper with you. We could ask you for it, and I'll see you guys at practice.